I'm going to talk a little bit about the challenges that I've seen in a lot of the young men who I guess are now the sons of some of my friends. I'm of an age now where people have 20-something children. And I see the challenges that the young women are facing. A lot of it is mental health, social media, self-image, self-conception, identity, comparing themselves to others, FOMO. We're all familiar with some of these social media-induced ailments. For the men, a lot of it is, there's a lot of marijuana addiction, there's a lot of video game addiction, there's a lot of men retreating into imaginary worlds. They become obsessed with UFC fighting and violent sports and social media smackdowns, which, by the way, like, there's nothing wrong with sports. I'm not here to bash sports, but a lot of the young men I meet have sort of retreated into these kind of alternate universes, video games especially. I went through my own period of video game addiction. I know how tempting it can be. And part of it is just, you know, they're having more issues with attention span, more than women, with focus, academic direction. These days, you have to bring focus and discipline to your scholarly and professional career earlier in life. You have to have a plan. You know, at my age, I kind of just waltzed into college and figured out what I was going to do in life, like in my late 20s and early 30s. It's very difficult to do that now. For a variety of reasons, I think women are having, it's easier a little bit for them to navigate the planning and mood control to some extent that's necessary to really focus academically at an earlier age. And yeah, a lot of the young men I see are very troubled. And in terms of the political response, one thing I worry about, and I guess this circles back to some of the stuff we've been talking about with Trudeau, simply looking at any discussion about male problems as, oh, you're just talking about men's rights. The real issue here is male toxicity. You know, kind of get over it. You know, it's 2025. Like, you're just complaining about feminism. You're just complaining about DEI. And to be fair, there is some of that. Like, you listen to some of the right-wing podcasts, and like, it's just not helpful to just blame all of men's problems on women, or, you know, the feminization of society. Like, it's not a useful direction to take the discussion. But it's also not useful, and I think Justin Trudeau bears some responsibility for this, of just saying, you know, that the condition of being male is sort of inherently toxic, and that this is just this kind of contaminant that pervades society. And men should be sort of ashamed.
Apologetic, I think, is a lot of people, you know, like, yeah, you're supposed to apologize for being, you know, I'm a white male especially, right? Like,
one thing that really, I think, bothers a lot of young men is when older men who've been lucky and have made it, like Justin Trudeau, which, you know, he's not 80 years old, but if you're 20, he seems like an older guy, or someone like like me, or I guess us, when they kick down at younger men and say, stop being so toxic, stop complaining. And they're like, well, you know, you're doing well, like, you have a house.
Easy for you to say.
Yeah, easy for you to say. You know, you grew up when you could get into college with a 75 or an 80 average. You got men applying to universities, and women too, but, you know, where, you know, they're getting rejected from universities if they don't have 17 different extracurriculars and a 95% average, and some of them end up in dead-end jobs, and you know, they sometimes succumb to some unhealthy stuff like political radicalism, or, you know, again, they just they spend all their time with video games. And
lost and easily to manipulate once you become
They're
lost,
easy to
right?
be politically manipulated, and then you focus on that political radicalism and say, there's your problem. You're just right-wing anti-vaxxers and whatnot. Obviously, you know, these are things to be concerned about, but often that's a symptom. That's not the cause of the issue, right?
Yeah. Like, I think that's the easiest people to prey on. It's people that are lost, right? Because they're looking to attach to something.
And the same thing, and there's one point I'm going to make in the discussion, is that you easily could have had the same discussion about the crisis in femininity, or the feminine ideal, where, but that takes a different form, you know, rather than that be about, you know, listening to Joe Rogan and going on weird caveman diets. It's more about, like, there's a lot of guilt and who am I? And I'm doing white feminism the wrong way, and I need to be more intersectional. And I need to interrogate myself, and they can get sucked into, statistically, they get sucked into radicalism on the other side. They start putting on keffiyehs and start babbling about political causes they don't understand, and having unpronounceable pronouns and stuff like that. There's a crisis of identity on the female side too, although it takes a different form.